We are only days away from the Olympics and continuing to chat to Olympians, past, present, and future in all the different ways. And I'm so excited today to return to the sport of shooting with a two-time Olympian, a Commonwealth Games medalist, a World Cup medalist, and the unique distinction of being an Olympic flag bearer without actually carrying her nation's flag. It's an interesting point to get to, and I'm very excited to learn about that experience. And let's just say right now, 1 foot on the plane to Paris. Potentially by the time you're listening to this, both feet will be on the plane to Paris. But at the time of recording this, I'm saying one of those feet is on the plane to Paris. It's a pleasure to welcome to the show today, Elena Galiabovitch. I was practicing that so much, Elena, before we got to this. Elena Galiabovitch. I'm gonna stop right now. Take three. Elena Galiabovitch. How was that? Third time, kind of close. You know?
Yeah, I mean, good enough for someone who's never probably said it before.
Thank you. I will say I said it about 50 times before I got on this call, and I was pretty impressed with my pronunciation. I know. You need to shame me now because of all the practice. But Elena, welcome to Off the Podium. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
I am looking forward to learning about your journey in the sport because I love shooting. We're talking a bit off air about, we obviously had Sergey on recently back on the show. We've had several shooters on over the years because this is a sport that I think Australia needs to understand that we love more than we think we do. Because I know when the Olympics come on, everybody is like, we love shooting, it's so good. Commonwealth Games, we love shooting, it's so good. But they never talk about it outside of the Olympics and Commonwealth Games. It's secretly a sport that we all love so much and we need to admit it more, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good to put the sport out there because most people don't really think about shooting as a sport. And I think it's good to remind people that we do it, as a sport. I like to call myself a hole puncher, so I'm no threat. I just punch holes in paper, but it's a bit of fun. Like everyone can have fun having a go in a safe way. So, yeah.
It's a great way of explaining it. A hole puncher. That's an Olympic hole puncher. Maybe we need to completely restart that introduction. That's a great way of looking at it. I mean, tell us about the beginning, the journey getting into the sport, because you have a very interesting background moving to Australia at 4, your father's story about sort of why he had to come to Australia and bring you, obviously, a bit of a challenging start for you. But give us a bit of an idea of that and then sort of how that transitioned into getting you into shooting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I only know in retrospect all the things about our move, and my dad likes to say that it was for my health and things like that, but I think he just wanted to give us a better life, essentially, because, Belarus now is obviously a lot worse than what things were like beforehand, but even then, very poor country, not a lot of resources, not a lot of food. My parents used to have to line up to get things like bananas or butter, or, you'd get coupons for food, and I think he just wanted more opportunity for us, and they put in applications to a few different countries. I know US and Australia was the one that came first, and both my parents were university educated. So it took years and years and years. And obviously by the time 1994 rolled around, that's when we had the green light, and so we moved. And look, I'm grateful for all the opportunities that it's afforded me. I'm sure my life would look really different now if we'd stayed there. And I see myself as Australian. I don't know anything different. I was 4 years old when we moved here. I don't have a lot of memory of life before. So it's all things that I'm told by my family. And my sister is a bit older. She was 8 when we moved, so she's 4 years older than me. So she remembers a bit more, and she's been back, and my parents have been back more times, but I've only been back once, and that was when I was less than 10 as well. So I don't really remember a lot of that experience. I guess the only downside is we don't really have any family around here. So we're the only ones that live in Australia. My auntie's in the US, and my dad's got 5 brothers who all still live in Belarus. So a bit of a hard time there at the moment.
Very challenging, I guess, to kind of talk about that background and family, because obviously with the situation, I know we mentioned slightly a bit with that with Sergey recently, because in our first chat with him, we talked about sort of that Belarusian heritage and things had changed since we had obviously had him on the show. So, and as you said, if if Australian move hadn't happened and let's say the same path had have occurred and you were potentially going to a third Olympics, you'd be doing it under a neutral flag, wouldn't you? You wouldn't even be able to sort of represent your own country right now.
I'm not sure if it even would be a possibility. I guess the way that the shooting sport works in a lot of countries is quite different to how it is in Australia. So I was sort of thinking like, the people have pretty poor wages in Belarus, and I was like, I don't even know if this would even be possible because, as you know, I have a job. So like shooting is not I don't do it full time. And there's periods of time where I'm just focused on the shooting, but in general, in Australia, you've got to have a job to be able to do your shooting as a sport most of the time. Whereas overseas, including countries like Belarus in the past, it's more of a, like, people get paid to do it. It's a professional sort of thing. But yeah, I have no idea what life would look like, so there's not really much point to speculate. But I guess the second part of your question was how that related to
how did you get into shooting? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been my dad's career for his whole life. Like, he's almost 70 now and he's really passionate about it. So as soon as we arrived, I think he was looking for pistol clubs. He's had various jobs over the time. It's not always been in as a coach. It just depends. You know, there's only one real job, like as a pistol coach in Australia. But he always was going around to like local clubs because it's his passion. And when I was younger in high school, 14 or 15, one school holidays, like the summer holidays, our long break, he was going to do a junior camp and I didn't have anything to do in the holidays, so I just went along with him. I had no idea, like I had zero idea. I had to ask people to help me because I didn't know how to like use the equipment. And I think when he wanted to show me, I was like, no, because, you know, I'd made some friends or whatever. Anyway, so that was embarrassing. But that's sort of how it started, because then a few months later, I don't know how long, like 4 or 6 or whatnot, but because I made some friends, I wanted to keep doing it because I'd met some people at the junior camp. So for me, it was always intended to be for fun. But I think it's hard when, you know, it's a parent, it's a coach, and, you know, I wasn't really in a position to take the sport that seriously. It wasn't that, you know, when I was at a competition, I didn't care. That's not it. But I wasn't really invested in training and all those sort of aspects, especially when you're living at home with your parents and, you know, then you go to do an activity that you wanted to do for fun and they're there telling you what to do all the time and like coaching you. I wasn't mature enough to be able to deal with that. So I did it for a while up until maybe I was 19, or I think I stopped in third year of my undergrad. And then I picked it back up in 2014, which was the final year of my med school. So there was a pretty decent break in there. My dad was working overseas for some of that time. And I think when I first started again, I was just spend a bit of time with him, went to some local competitions just for fun, because we'd done our biggest exams for med school in third year. So things were a little bit less, you know, time consuming. I actually lived in Ballarat for a couple of years while I was in med school. So, you know, with the move and then, you know, coming back to Melbourne was a bit easier. Shoot, and that's sort of how it started. And I just remember in 2014, that's when I started going to the competitions again. And I was doing pretty well. And I was enjoying it. I was like, oh, okay, like maybe this is all right. And there was the selections for the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow in 2014. And like that was never anything that I'd had in my mind at all. But then someone had sent me the selection policy and said something about me being close. And then they announced the team. And I sort of thought, actually, I think I do want like to give this a go and to be part of it. So that's when it sort of started a bit more. I started taking it a bit more seriously. And I think I had a different approach. Like it wasn't like, you know, my dad telling me what to do anymore and me not wanting to listen because I was an immature child. I mean, that still happens sometimes because you just can't help it. And I have to tell myself, it's okay, you can listen now. But, you know, it was just different time, different sort of attitude, different desires to get things out of the sport. And I guess it's been like 10 years now. So.
Fascinating. So, I mean, at that point when you decide to kind of take it a bit seriously, I mean, that's what, less than 2 years away from from Rio. So, I find that fascinating that you kind of go, oh, okay, maybe I will take this a bit more seriously. And then less than 18 months basically later, you're an Olympian.
Yeah. Well, maybe 2.5 years later.
Kind of works.
Yeah, I
way.
mean, like the cards always have to lay. Oh, I don't know whatever the saying is, but I think you get what you mean. Like you got to have, well, actually, I say you make your own luck, but things have to fall into place. And I just did what I could, and I wasn't the like Lolita Sergey's mum at the time was the top shooter in the country, and she had one spot, and I managed to do enough to get the second spot. So that was pretty good.
It's fascinating that you kind of compete against his mum, and then all of a sudden, you obviously, she went to many Olympics, but here you are now, kind of as Sergey as the teammate. I mean, it's kind of crazy that lineage, because you were with your dad, if I'm not mistaken. He was sort of around the coaching period of Australia for a long time, sort of in the lead up to Sydney, kind of with all the athlete programs that were being introduced around then. So you, no doubt, were exposed to a lot of this sort of national level of shooting a lot during your childhood.
Well, yeah, I think like in contrary to Sergey's experience, I didn't go along with him to stuff. Like he'd go along with his mum, and he sort of grew up around ranges, and some people knew him from when he was, a football or whatnot. I didn't do that so much. My dad did take us to the Sydney Olympics though, so we saw his athlete Anne-Marie Forder win a bronze medal. So we were there then. I don't remember heaps about that, but I was standing there in the stands watching with my sister the air pistol match, and I think I just went to the toilet. And when I was coming back, and like my dad's there with like 2 police or something because they thought they've lost me or like security or something like that. I mean, I don't know the exact timing of it because I was 10, but that's probably what I remember the most. And we didn't just do shooting. We went to heaps of different sports because, my dad loves all the sports. I went to volleyball and I think gymnastics, and I can't remember all of them now. Handball, I think, as well.
Oh, the best. That's the best one to go to.
Yeah, we did a road trip. He took us in the car. And so that was probably the most, really. And I think occasionally, like at our local pistol club, which is Oakley Pistol Club, that my dad's a life member of now, because like I said, essentially as soon as we landed, he was looking for a club. Like I'd occasionally go there if my dad was taking like a group of friends or something, like when I would be there with my mum. So I know I went occasionally, but it wasn't, that frequent like Sergey would have been. As we were talking, I remember, I think my year 8 birthday party or something was at the pistol club. We took a few of my classmates air pistol shooting. Yes, I remember that now, year 8 or year 9 or something like that. Because technically, after you turn 12, you can shoot under supervision. So,
I just always love talking to shooters because, particularly growing up in the sport, I mean, that's such a cool thing to be able to do. I mean, I fired a gun, I think like 3 times in my life, and it was in America. I was staying with friends on a farm, and of course it was in America. So, it was very safe. It was very controlled. It wasn't just like we're going around shooting animals or anything. It was a very controlled, safe environment. But, besides that one point in my life, I couldn't tell you any opportunity I would have had to shoot guns. So, like, I mean, it's obviously for a different reason, but like if I've got friends with somebody who's a shooter, come down to the range on my year 8 party, I'm going to be having a good time.
Yeah, I guess you have to seek it out because it's not out there so much. And so, like this year, I'm hoping that they actually televise shooting a bit more for the games, because I think every games I've been to, like 2016, 2020, they always say, everything with an Australian athlete will be televised. But in Rio, no one could find me. And we, they only televised the finals, and sometimes only if we had someone in the final. And then in Tokyo, I know it was just the finals. So they don't really show enough that people can know what it's about. And I know it's not like a massive spectator sport because it's a little bit more, I don't know, slower paced. It's an endurance thing. It's very precise, but you can still make it entertaining.
I think it's so entertaining, Elena.
Yeah. Like everyone's got a backstory. So while they're doing their shooting, you can talk about the athletes and things. And because otherwise our sport, like if we don't get new people or the desire for people to have a go, it'll just shrink and shrink and shrink. And part of that's about exposure. And Yeah, so hopefully they'll show a bit more this time around.
Well, I'm very hopeful too because I love it. Like, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up your ass because you're on the show, but like, I mean, I'll use an example. I'm a massive archery fan. Like, archery is just one of these sports that it's on the Olympics. I love it, and I just love that precision, the tension, just everything that relies there on just a shot and millimeter, and it's so focused and everything. I mean, growing up, my passion and love for the Olympics and sort of really getting into it in the 90s and the 2000s. I remember vividly watching Russell Mark, Michael Diamond, like those sort of ones. And that was my introduction to shooting. I just was so fixated by it. I remember Anne-Marie winning the bronze in Sydney. I think I remember every Sydney medalist. I was that hooked on the Olympics. But just little things like that. And it does baffle me that shooting is kind of one of these ones that doesn't get shown more, because I've been going back to my very part at the introduction where I said this is the sport I feel Australians every time it's on they do love. And when they do show it, we're hooked to it.
Yeah, well, hopefully more people like you will like learn about it and learn to enjoy it, or I don't know, love is a strong word, but it'd be good to get
we've
more,
got to sell all the sports.
Into it.
We do, particularly obviously, we've got a home Olympics in 8 years' time, so we obviously want to focus on all the sports. But I guess on the flip side of, even if 9 aren't going to show it as much as we would like, there is the ability though for everybody to tune into their app or to Stan, right? And obviously every sport now, you can just ignore their 23-hour blanket coverage of swimming and watch the shooting, right? Like we have the ability to do that in 2024 at least.
Funny because like I love swimming as well, but I'd probably like to see it once and then see something else.
Yes, we get it. Ariane Titmus won another gold. Yes.
Yeah. No, I was watching those swimming trials last week. I don't know. I do really enjoy it, but I agree with you. It's nice because that's what it is. It's the showcase of a lot of different sports. And so I'd really like for them to show it. And I was really curious when I saw that Stan said that they were going to have everything. Like, are they? But are they actually? Because I've heard it before. And I was like, show it.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of I'll say this, and this isn't me trying to be a cheerleader for, broadcasters during Olympics, because lo and behold, I've spent a lot of time on this show criticizing broadcasters during Olympics, but I did work for 7 during the Beijing Olympics during the winters, and the biggest eye-opener for me is seeing the challenge that a network does have to be able to show an event like the Olympic Games. And obviously I was doing a Winter Olympics when there's, say, 40 Australian athletes to focus on. There's 450 summer athletes, looking at Paris. So it's a challenge, and no doubt they try their best. And with the apps, obviously, as much as we want them to work on paper, they always have failures, and there's always something you can't sort of get to. But at least I think it shows where we're at when you, on paper, have the ability to watch every sport you want, right? Like, as I said, I love archery. They're never going to show archery on Channel 9. So I can choose the archery app and watch it, and hopefully it's going to work. So similar shooting. And the time difference too. Like, I mean, I guess this is the thing, right? If somebody's up at 4 a.m. watching something and swimming's not on, I'm sure they're probably going to be open to showing a lot more different sports.
Yeah, I was just thinking the time difference might work in our favour a little bit with shooting, because it's a bit different this time around. So in Paris, the qualification is going to be on one day and then the finals on the next day. And so both of that is going to happen in morning time over there, which will be evening time in Australia. So maybe we'll get a bit more viewership. Perfect time.
Because if I'm not mistaken, the 10-meter air pistol, that's generally the first medal event of the Olympics, isn't it? Like, historically, that is the first event that a medal is decided in.
Well, in Rio was women's air rifle, I think.
Right.
I think air pistol, men and women, might be on the second day.
Okay.
And air rifle might be on the first day.
I knew it was one of them.
Yes, it used to be.
It's one of them.
But it won't be anymore.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I remember that in Rio. First medal's been decided.
It's always shooting. It's always a women's shooting event. Like, generally, I think Sydney was an exception because that was the women's triathlon. I remember that. But I think basically from every Olympics from Athens onwards, it's always generally one of the women's shooting event is everyone's focused on what's the first medal of the Olympics going to be. So, when it came to that selection for Rio, ultimately you didn't go to Glasgow for the Commonwealth Games, but when it came to Rio, I mean, can you sort of take us through that no pun intended, I know there's no rapid fire, but I have to use the word rapid, that rapid rise that you were able to kind of, when switching focus so, intensely to making an Olympics. Because, 2 years, even if you've been doing the sport for a decade, as you kind of have, but to, really be focused on it in a 2-year period, that's an incredible turnaround to make an Olympics that quickly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I haven't reflected on this that much, actually. It's hard to think back that far. But I think I came in with a good base. So it wasn't like I'd never done it before, just I hadn't done it for a while. And you still retain concepts and principles. I think actually some of the things that I'm trying to change at the moment are as a result of the fact that, I just started shooting for fun and I wasn't really paying attention to the technique and then created some bad habits as a result of that. So, but in general, I had a solid foundation, and I don't think I had expectations to make the team, but I just wanted to give it a red hot go. And it was an interesting time for me because 2015, that's when I started working full time as a doctor. So first time being a doctor, that's like a big change. You're learning so many things, but internship is actually the least hours you'll ever do. So, on my days off, I'm not on call or anything like that on days off or evenings or whatever. I can't remember my rostering that well. I'd be able to have time to train. So, I don't really remember what was going through my mind at the time. I remember the selection competitions because there were only 2 of them. But I knew I wasn't, the front runner. I just guess we were all vying for that second spot because I think Lolita shot a really good sport pistol score, and that was my stronger event. But her score automatically qualified her, and I knew there were people that could beat me in the air pistol. But I don't know, just gave it a go. I remember having a bit of a meltdown in one of the competitions. It hasn't happened since. I was just so nervous. It was the last 10 shots, and it was all of a sudden I was didn't even know what I was doing anymore. But luckily it hasn't happened since. But that's pretty much all I can really remember about it. I don't know. It's a long time ago, but also not that long ago. But I don't know.
It doesn't seem that long ago, but I know what you mean. We are nearly 10 years removed from 2015. So that's a scary one. I want to, touch more on Rio in just a moment, but I want to ask maybe a dumb question or maybe a smart question. I don't know. Can you explain to us the differences between the air pistol and the sport pistol for us who maybe aren't, that knowledgeable in the world of guns and shooting?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with air pistol. So, one of the differences is the distance. So air pistol is 10 meters, 25-meter pistol is 25 meters. It's also called sport pistol, but I think they're actually calling it 25-meter pistol. So that gives it away. They're different guns. So the 10-meter, the air pistol has a cylinder on it full of compressed air, and that's what propels a little lead pellet. Right. So you don't actually shoot any live rounds. There's no gunpowder or any of it. It comes in a little tin of 500 tiny little things. You can squish them with your fingers. And the target is smaller. So 10 meters, smaller target, different gun, air, no gunpowder. And then 25 meters, it's a semi-automatic 22 that we use, which means after you fire one shot, it automatically reloads, but you need to pull the trigger for the next shot to go off. So semi-automatic, you shoot little ammo, it's about this long. The target's bigger. And for the women, there's 2 types of shooting. So there's the same as air pistol, a precision style target where you've got this big black circle in the middle. It's surrounded by white in a square. And then you've also got rapid fire shooting, which is similar to what Sergey does, but for the women it's different, where it's like a red light, green light thing. Green light means shoot the target, red light means wait, and you wait for 7 seconds, then you've got 3 seconds to shoot it, then you wait for 7 seconds again. And you do that 5 times, and that's the rapid fire portion of the 25-meter for women.
Fascinating, because I know we touched on that slightly with Sergey around his category and how, while there, I guess, technically isn't a women's direct version of his in the Olympics, but there is, like what you're explaining. Because I think that through my research with Sergey, his event was actually open to women like 60 years ago. So it was an open event. Like women could enter the Olympics, and I think a few did to compete against men.
Cool.
So I don't know if the rules would still allow you to do that now, but that was...
I mean, at our opens and things like that, women do shoot it. But I think I don't think you're allowed to be in finals. I'm not 100% certain. But there's some events that are open, some that are men's, some that are women's. So Sergey shoots 5 targets, whereas I shoot the same target 5 times.
Yep. Okay. I always like to ask that with our shooters, because I know if everybody's a long-term listener to this show, you probably always hear me ask a shooter a similar question. But I mean, I feel it's one of those events where you hear shooting, you think gun, easy. Like there's, you've got 25 minutes, 10 minutes. It sounds on paper like it's very similar, but like a trap shooter is completely different to what you're doing. So when I mentioned Michael Diamond, they're not even in the same ballpark really of what you're doing. It's like a marathon runner and a 100-meter sprinter, right? They're completely different.
Yeah, that's right. I think most of the time when you say shooting, people think that you do trap or skeet or something like that and shoot like the clay targets. Because that's, I guess people know that a bit more than the pistol and the rifle. But did my explanation make sense? Because it makes sense to me, but I don't know if it makes sense to you. No,
it did make sense. I visualize it, and sort of I like the way you explain it, because I know from watching shooting over the years that I can visualize the target difference. So when you're saying with Sergey with like the multiple ones, the colors, like things like that, it's absolutely I do, and it's interesting actually. Australia has won 11 medals in the history of shooting at the Olympics, and only 2 of them have come in pistol. The rest have all come in, the rifle categories, which I find very fascinating. It's sort of, is there a reason behind this? Is there a reason why Australians are sort of more into the rifles than the pistols?
I thought it was more shotgun. I know that there's definitely been 1 rifle medal.
That's my lack of knowledge on guns right there, that I completely think rifles and shotguns are the same. There you go. See? So I'm completely buying into the Kool-Aid that I'm trying to sell you, Elena. There you go. Thanks for correcting me.
Oh, crap. Maybe
I appreciate I need to be corrected when it comes to saying things like that, but thank you.
I more thought, I was like, oh my God, have I not realized all these people?
Ben says the big guns versus the little guns. There we go.
Yeah, okay. So in the big guns, there's shotgun and rifle.
Yes.
There's a lot more depth in shotgun, and I don't know how to create it really, but you just need more of a grassroots sort of participation and people coming up. And I think shotgun's had a pretty well-established program because they've had more success and sort of drives more people to do it. I think ultimately we need more participation, and shotgun has that. They have more participation. They've got more people coming through the clubs. They've got heaps of people entering all their different shoots. Like they're not all even like state title type things. They're just local comps, but heaps of people go there. And I mean, this is not a big contributor by any means, but I think there's some schools that do shotgun shooting. They might be in the country or something, but with pistol, and I don't know so much about rifle, but it's mainly, if your dad shoots and the parents bring the kids to the range, and like that's how people get into it, by knowing someone who does it. Sometimes it's a cousin or a friend. Like you have to be somewhat adjacent, and makes it a small pool to choose from. But shotgun's just a bigger pool of people. They've got more, and it sort of drives that excellence, because if you've got many people at the same level and you're sort of building up and up and up.
Because you touched on Anne-Marie's bronze in Sydney, but our other pistol medal came in 1984, Patricia Dench, which that actually was our first ever Olympic medal in shooting. So for all this great history we've got in the big guns, our first ever pistol was first, 1984. And for our Canadian half of this podcast, gold was won in that by Linda Thorne from Canada. So, I mean, that's something that I feel you pistol shooters should hold above the big gun club, because it's like, well, our first Olympic medal actually came with the little guns. Come on now.
All right, cool. I'll have that in my repertoire now to argue with them.
Please do. But I mean, are people like Patricia, people like Anne-Marie, are they obviously held in very high regard given of their achievements? And also, is that also held as motivation that, we are in a 24-year drought really since winning a medal in pistol shooting?
Yeah, no, it is. So Anne-Marie, I think she had a long time off after her Olympics, but she did participate, maybe not even, was it before COVID or even, I can't remember exactly, but in the last few years, she'd come to some comps, and it is a bit motivating. Like, oh God, I'm shooting with an Olympic medalist. Like, it gives you a little bit of oomph, something more to like, drive. So it is nice to be around people like that. And obviously, Sergey's got his mum, and I know she wasn't representing Australia at that time, but once when I was over there, I was like, can I see it? Can I look at the medal?
You have to ask, right? You kind of have to. We love doing that when we've got medalists on the show, and we often say, like, is it near you? Can you show us the medal? Actually, one of our very first guests when we first started back in 2016 after Rio was Catherine Skinner. And she, told great stories around, what she was doing with that gold medal, because it was very fresh on the mind sort of back then in 2016.
Probably need to get your sanitizer out.
Yes, exactly. But that's the thing. And you'll learn this, Elena, after in a few months when you win an Olympic medal, of course, that the dirtier and more damaged it gets, the better it is, because it's, you've always got it out showing people, you're at a school, you're doing things, right? No one wants their medal being shiny still after a couple of months.
That's true. No, that would definitely be very cool. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
When it came to the whole Rio experience, I mean, you went to two very unique Olympics, of course. Rio at the time was controversial. This isn't a, quote, normal Olympics. And then obviously Tokyo happened. But, I mean, outside of the competition factor, I mean, things like village life, pin trading, anything along those lines, did you sort of get involved in all that kind of outside of competition stuff in the Olympics?
Yeah, so I went to a heap of different sports in Rio to support some other Aussies and stuff. That was cool. That was obviously lacking in Tokyo. You could only go to your own venue and you were in and out pretty quickly. Did trade pins. That didn't stick in my mind that much.
We always ask that question. Always ask that question.
Yeah, I forget. We have this one guy on the rifle team that's just like super obsessed with it. It would just sneak people out for pin trading. But anyway, if it happens, it happens. That's my attitude.
That's not what you're focused on. You don't. That's a side project at an Olympics.
Yeah,
Got
that's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There wasn't a heap to do in the village. There wasn't heaps. They had like one room thing with games, I think, like where you could play pool or, video games or something like that. There wasn't like a whole heap to do around the village itself. We did venture out a few times, went to Brazilian barbecue. We went and saw Christ the Redeemer. What else we do? It was cool because some other countries had like Austria House or Germany House. So if you got invited, we went along to them a few times and that was fun. Like some of them would have live music and things like that. So a bit of a nightclub type vibe. Tried to get to know people on other teams. The closing ceremony was fun. We were being poured on, but then, Aussie HQ had a bit of a party for us that night. So there was definitely stuff to do. We were there for quite a long time. And I think for women, like the AOC had rules that you can only go out in threes and there has to be a man with you. So sometimes, the movement, I think people had stuff stolen and, they were all, I'm sure at the time you guys remember all the stories about people, getting into a bit of trouble over there. So, overall it's really awesome. I think on reflection, watching all the other sports is super cool because you're watching people who are at their peak, like the best in the world. I saw Michael Phelps win a gold medal. I saw Simone Biles win a gold medal.
Wow.
That's pretty epic.
Yeah.
It was really cool. The one thing that got me, I just remember now about Rio, is the booing. I could not deal with the booing. We went to beach volleyball and it wasn't the home team or anything. It wasn't even Brazil. It was USA versus, I don't know, someone else. But they'd pick a side and then they'd boo the other people. I just find that so rude.
Wow. Very passionate, the Brazilians, aren't they?
I was just like, come on. These people have put years and years and years into this. And I just remember we were at the athletics one night as well. And they were booing. I think we were watching the pole vault, but maybe it wasn't the final, or maybe it was the final. But I remember they booed the silver medalist when he received his medal the next day.
Wow!
I was like, can you imagine winning a silver medal at the Olympics and being booed?
Getting booed! Wow! Jeez,
it's terrible. Anyway,
never heard that.
But Brazilian crowds were rowdy. I'm surprised it hasn't come up. I guess it's like a football thing. I don't know. Do they boo a lot in football? And it's like a cultural thing
I
where,
think, yeah, I mean, South Americans obviously very passionate no matter where you are. I mean, I know during the Women's World Cup last year, the best atmosphere games I went to involved South American sides and they're incredibly passionate. So, yeah, I think it probably just comes from that level, right? So, yeah, I mean, do they do it at the shooting? Are they, yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of can't do it at the shooting. I'm sure you're getting kicked out, right?
yeah, I'm trying to think back. No, I think because we've had a lot of rule changes in shooting over the years. And I can't even remember in 2016 if they were playing music. I think they were playing music while we did the shooting. But there was a
Really?
time,
Wow.
I think so. So that they do, they play music, like you wear earplugs or earmuffs or whatever. But there's usually a playlist that plays during the qualification and in the finals as well. But now in the finals, they encourage everyone to cheer and clap and like they've got a DJ making noises and stuff because they're trying to get people more excited.
I thought it was
But
like golf or tennis. Like I thought it
you
was
have to be
just quiet,
quiet.
please. I didn't realize that there was actually, that's fascinating.
They're trying to get people to like make more noise. So in the qualification, it's still pretty quiet. Then
Hmm.
in the finals, you got people cheering and whistling and whatnot. It depends on the crowd, of
Right.
course. But I think in Rio, it was still a quiet please type situation. Maybe they changed it after. I'm not sure. I can't remember when the rule change came in, but yeah, it used to be like, everyone's holding their breath while they're shooting, like while
Well,
they're
what do
shooting the
you
shots and
do you
cheer
prefer?
afterwards.
Like, do you prefer it? Like, are you sort of the type of shooter that
Oh,
gets amped up with the crowd, or do you like it a bit quiet?
actually, Com Games was really cool with the crowd because obviously they're cheering for you, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when I
They're
was in
booing
the
everyone else.
final, yeah, that's right. So I think it's quite good when there's cheering. I think I don't like. You obviously have to get not too excited that you're not concentrating on what you're doing, but I'm used to it now. I think when the change first came in, people were a bit like, oh, like, because you're just not used to it, and then you get used to it, and it's fine. But Com Games was excellent because the home crowd, and I was shooting that final, and I didn't have to look at my screen to know what the result was going to be because I
Great.
knew because of the crowd reaction.
You knew
So
the crowd. Fantastic. What a
yeah,
great experience that would be. Just on the results in Rio. So 32nd in the 25 meter, 43rd in the 10. Are you a type of person who sets yourself a target, no pun intended? Like, do you sort of go like, I want to make the final top whatever, and kind of how do you reflect on those results in Rio compared to maybe
yeah.
what you were
I think
setting
like
yourself?
in Rio being so new into it, I don't think realistically there weren't any expectations. But you're going to an Olympics, everyone wants to perform well. So even though I knew sort of that I was on the lower end of the people in that field, I don't know, maybe the dreams were a bit too big. I'm not sure. I know air pistol was like second last or something like that. Um, and in the sport pistol, I think at the time I was overall happy with my performance, except for like the last five shots. I think the last five shots I lost a lot of points and it put me lower. I think I would have been more in middle of the field. But I remember in Rio, that last series, because for women it's the rapid fire style, the one where I mentioned where you've got 3 seconds to shoot it and you do it five times. And I remember thinking these might be the last shots that I do at Olympic Games, something like that. I think I probably psyched myself out a little bit, and it's not great coming at the bottom of the field, but realistically, I probably couldn't have expected a lot more than that. In sport pistol was stronger, so that was a little bit disappointed. And the air pistol, it is what it is. I'm glad I didn't come last.
Is it still that level though that, well, it's disappointing to, as you say, finish the bottom of any sort of event. The flip side of that, you've qualified for an Olympic Games. You've beaten out, hundreds of thousands of other shooters who didn't quite make it to that. So at the end of the day, you're still in the top, however many of the world because you still had an Olympics.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think my sister said something along the same lines to me, being like, yeah, but you're the very bottom of like the very, very top percent of people. So, no, yeah, ultimately, it's not like I look back on that and feel like sad or bummed or anything. It was just more your question prompted that. I was like, oh, yeah.
I'm getting these
Wasn't an
memories out,
amazing
Elena. I
result.
like this.
Yeah.
I'm helping you kind of go there. I want to get to Tokyo, but two quick questions before I get to Tokyo. When it comes to your two events, I think you alluded to there that your preference is obviously the 25 meter, but like, is there much? obviously you explained the differences in the guns and everything that happens, but when it comes to like preparation mentally, like do you have a 25-meter prep day and a 10-meter, like if that question makes sense, or can you combine all your training that uses in both the events?
Yeah. I know the prep is different, but it's not like vastly different. I guess there's more difference between like the rapid fire style and the precision style shooting. So if I talk about my warm up or like the preparation immediately before the match, it's very similar. It's like using different guns. Maybe I have slightly different drills. But the air pistol target is a lot smaller, so it sort of feels harder, more precise, even the 25-meter shooting of the same style of precision shooting. But there definitely are differences, but between air pistol and like the 25-meter precision, there's not a mass amount of difference, but it's a completely different style of shooting for the rapid fire.
Is there a reason why you prefer the 25-meter over the 10?
I guess historically I've done better in it. That's where I've got my World Cup gold medal. I guess the other difference for me is the duration of the event. So air pistol goes for a long time, like feels a bit like a marathon. So you get your 15 minutes preparation and sighting time, so you can shoot as much as you want, and you don't start scoring until that clock ticks over. And then you've got 75 minutes to do 60 shots. So you manage your own time. And then in the 25-meter event, it's a bit different. And I think the difference is more historical. So we didn't always used to have electronic targets. We had paper targets. And I mean, we still use paper targets, the majority of ranges in Australia, but all the major competitions are all on electronic targets. Like an air pistol, you manage your own thing. You put a new target in, you have a little winder that takes it 10 meters and brings it back. But on 25 meters, you do 5 shots in 5 minutes. And then you put everything down and people go out and score it and patch the holes in the target. So the way that it works in 25 meters, they give you 1 minute to load, 5 minutes to shoot, 1 minute break. And I think it's because of the previous cycle. Obviously, in the paper targets, when people go out there and score it and patch it, it takes more than 1 minute. But it's maintained that rhythm of shooting. So we do that 6 times.
Like momentum, kind of. You get in the zone, I can imagine.
Yeah, like they've kept that structure of having a break after every 5, even though it's electronic. So yeah, minute load, 5 minutes shoot, minute break. We do that. Well, we do it 7 times because they give us a sighting series. Again, that doesn't count. It's just for you to prepare, and then we do that 6 times. And sometimes maybe that rhythm, like, as you say, I quite like, having a shorter time limit sometimes. And you can set that for yourself in air pistol, but realistically, you also know that you have longer. So I think air pistol, you really got to think about how you're going to manage it, how you're going to manage the match or difficult times, and your breaks, because there's no built-in break. Whereas in 25-meter, you've got your minute break every time. So just the rhythm of the events are a bit different. And then rapid fire is really fast. So it's over in like 20 minutes.
Wow.
So it's a shorter period of time to concentrate, but also you have less time for correction. So say an air pistol or the other half of 25 meters with the precision shooting, if something's not right, you just put everything down and start again. But you've only got 3 seconds to shoot the target. So you can't just start again and try again. It's now or never.
I love kind of hearing just the differences and everything and how that kind of plays out. You mentioned it very briefly. That was going to be my next question. World Cup gold in 2018. It was a pretty good year, 2018. You get 2 Commonwealth Games medals and a World Cup gold. Is that sort of the peak, the pinnacle? Like, is that sort of your highlight of your career, I guess, getting that World Cup gold in 2018?
Yeah, I'd say so. That was pretty cool. Really enjoyed that one. I don't know. Sometimes it just worked for me on that day, and I know I have that in me. I know I can do well. It just hasn't quite come together since then. I mean, I've had some good shoots and some good performances, but obviously no World Cup wins since that one.
Because that was your first final. Am I not mistaken? That was the first time you'd reached a final as well?
Yeah.
And you win a gold. I mean, what a perfect way to do it.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm like, I'm just going to make the final, and I just make the final.
You walk away with a gold medal, okay.
See what happens.
Yeah. Stephen Bradbury-esque, that is. That's brilliant. I love kind of hearing that. That's fascinating. But I mean, sort of that, we could be here for another hour to talk about obviously the whole period around Tokyo, particularly with your profession and ultimately what, that the honor that led to in the opening ceremony, which I'll touch on shortly. But did that give a real bit of confidence going into the next Olympics then, that you've walked away with a World Cup gold medal, that realistically now I can medal at the Olympics?
Yeah, things were improving. I think my goal was to make a final. And look, I was close. I was 1 point off. I think I came 11th in the 25-meter event, and in air pistol, I think I was in the middle of the pack, and I wasn't too disappointed with that. So, it wasn't like I still had a good performance there. But yeah, I didn't make the final, unfortunately. It's nice to have that bit of confidence when there's like a few more years between that time, and life changes and a few other things happen. You're like, oh, sometimes I catch myself being like, oh, I wish that things were like back then, or along those lines. Not exactly, but I'm just going to remind myself that you actually have to move forward, and you take those experiences on board. But I'm not the person I was 6 years ago. So I'm a different athlete as well, but it doesn't mean I'm any less competent. In fact, I actually think I've got better, but it just hasn't, the pieces of the puzzle haven't come together just yet.
Well, I love hearing that confidence and that positivity about that, Elena, because you answer my next question around that performance in Tokyo. And the way I work out, and I'm not a very good person when it comes to math, I'm not good at pronouncing things, I'm not good at naming correct guns, so I'm not very good in many things, but I'm going to try this with math. So 32nd in Rio, right? 11th in Tokyo. So that's a 21 improvement. You can't go 21 spots higher than 11, but you can go 11 spots higher. So I'm just saying, based on your progression from your first to your second Olympics, third Olympics, you kind of have to win gold. It's just how math works.
You kind of have to. That's right, girl math.
Right? That's how it works, right? That's an improvement on that level. But in all seriousness, though, 11th at an Olympics. It goes back to my point when I said before, when, you might be last in an event, but you're still better than however many other people didn't make the Olympics. But I'm sure there was that disappointment to miss out in the final by 1 point. But again, 11th at the Olympic Games. I mean, say it out loud with me. 11th at the Olympics. That's a bloody good thing to be able to say, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's pretty awesome. No, it was, I was happy with it. It's obviously after that moment of disappointment passes, it's awesome. 11th. Yeah. I remember it's funny. I'm 100% certain this person won't listen to this podcast. So it's definitely
no one
okay
does. It's fine.
For me to say it.
They join a select group.
So, after Tokyo, I went back to my chosen field of work, and started a new job. And my head of unit, I think he was asking me about sort of the period of time where I wasn't working in urology. I was a bit with private assisting, but I mainly worked in COVID stuff over that time. And he was asking, I guess, about my skills. I said, no, I have kept things up. I'd worked at my old job casually in locuming and doing clinics and things. And then he was talking about the Olympics. He was like, oh, so did you win? I was like, no, I'm pretty sure if I won, you'd already know that.
You'd see me on a stamp, probably in your mail.
And he was like, well, what was the point of going there? Or something along the lines of, what was the point of going then? Or there was no point to go, or to delay my surgical training. And then I was like, well, I came 11th. I carried the Olympic flag. That's nothing to scoff at. And his response was, it is if you're top 10.
Oh.
And I know that he meant it as a joke, but it's also really rude.
That's
anyway, he's not going to listen to it, so it's okay.
No, I don't want him to listen to this show.
He'd probably be proud.
Tell me his name. I'm going to find. I'll block him. He's not allowed to listen to that. That's harsh. It's interesting you say that. I remember many years ago we had a runner, Tristan Thomas, on this show, and he said a similar thing to what you said, that people ask him 2 questions when he says he's an Olympian. 1, did you win? And 2nd, because he's a runner, do you know Usain Bolt? So, it's kind of...
I have a photo with Usain Bolt.
Oh, hang on. Pause my point, because breaking news. Let's get back to that right now. I was going nowhere with that. Tell me about a photo with Usain Bolt.
Oh, well, I think in 2018 at the Com Games, I don't know what he was doing, but he
was DJing with Borby in the closing ceremony. I remember that. I was in the stadium.
Anyway, there was some event that I went to, and he was there. And then they said, okay, everyone can go get photos with him now. He literally just stood there while people came up and took photos.
Wow. So it was just a museum piece, stand with me and take a photo.
Yeah. Anyway, Poor dude. Anyway, we digress. You can go back to
no,
what you were saying.
I need you to send me that photo so we can share that, basically. Right. But It's really interesting. That's what one of the many things I love about doing this show, Elena, is getting to speak to Olympians of all distinctions, multiple Olympic medalists to, one-time Olympians, and they've all just got fascinating stories, because it goes back to what you were saying at the very beginning about, you work full-time, you're a doctor, you're a very busy lady, but ultimately you still have this dream of going to an Olympics and focusing on that. So not everyone's Ariane Titmus, and I'm not trying to shit on Ariane Titmus. She's a great Tasmanian. I absolutely love Ariane Titmus, but my point is, not everyone's going to be a swimmer who's going to get the funding and the money. So
there's very few people that win an Olympic Games, and like our swim team obviously does remarkably well. But you're absolutely right. Most people are like, "Did you win?" or like, "Come home with a medal." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." Yeah,
well, I mentioned
you do it too.
Catherine Skinner is somebody who's a classic example of that. Olympic gold medalist, doesn't make Tokyo. Obviously, at the time of recording this, we don't know whether she's going to be on a plane or not to Paris or not. But you think about it, you win an Olympic medal, that ultimate you're set for life. But it's not the case. And again, this is, by me saying this, not disrespecting Catherine Skinner and her achievements, but I guarantee you could have Catherine Skinner walk down the street today and nobody's sadly going to recognize her. Probably the same with like Russell Mark, Michael Diamond. That's the sad fact of it as well, isn't it? That kind of.
But
that's
no one will take away from her that she's an Olympic gold
100%
medalist.
no.
Like, can you imagine being able to say that? Like, holy crap.
I want to get her back on the show just to see if she's able to get that free McDonald's that we talked about 8 years ago. So,
I'm going to have to go and listen to the episode.
Yeah, it's a long way. And again, as I always say with our Olympic champions, you're on a stamp and they can never take that away from you. So, there is that. But gotta touch on the other big honor from Tokyo that obviously we've alluded to a few times, but you got to carry the Olympic flag into the opening ceremony. Now, how the heck did this come about, Elena? Because what an honor. I mean, that is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I remember when I was told about it, I was thinking, you know what? No matter what happens at this Games, it's already going to be enough. Like, it's already going to be good. So we were still in Australia when I was approached about it, and obviously, we know now that the Tokyo Organising Committee were trying to honour, frontline workers or people who have really helped in the COVID pandemic. We didn't know that then, but they were looking for someone from each continent, and I think they saw a piece about me in a newspaper working in the COVID testing sites, and somehow contacted the Australian Olympic Committee, who then contacted my high performance manager, who first cleared it with my coach before they came and asked me about it. So I think it was 10 days or something before leaving that I was asked if I wanted to do it, and I was like, yes. As if I'm going to say no to that.
Nah, I'm busy. Give it to someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, no, next time. I remember when Adam Sachs is the name of our high performance manager at the time, and he's like, "Oh, after training, can we just have a chat?" Whenever anyone says that to you, you never expect anything good.
It's always bad news.
You're just
we need to have a chat after training.
What did I do now? And then he's like, I can't remember his preamble. I can't remember the words that he said, to be honest. But I was like, "Are you serious?" Like, yes. And I was so happy.
Wow. How does that work then? Cool. Like when you get to you have to go to the I guess the opening ceremony dress rehearsal, or is it on the day, here's a flag, you're at this point, this is what you do?
Yeah, no, there was a rehearsal the day before, and I guess our role was relatively, I don't know, maybe we were out on there maybe for 20 minutes or something. But they gave you a little booklet of the information so you could read it later, but we did a walkthrough, and they explained the process, and they say follow this guy or whatever. I think I was the person that had to set the pace, but I was following someone ahead of me out there, and essentially tell you when to turn and how to hold the flag and how to walk off. But the day, on the day, I didn't march with the rest of the Australians. That was earlier in the opening ceremony. We did consider that, as the shooting team decided that no one from shooting was attending the ceremony. It was partly COVID reasons and partly performance reasons, because of course, you don't want to catch COVID of someone in a big crowd at the opening ceremony and then not be able to do your event. So I think that was the main part of it, was different for me. But if I'd gone to the whole thing, it would have been hours and hours and hours and a really long time. And I had my pre-event training the next day. So we elected just to do the flag part of it. so it's shorter, and then come back and get ready for competition. That's one thing that it's not something that I regret. I didn't really have a choice in it, but like I did it, and then I came back on the bus by myself, or like with one of the other girls who did it from Italy. She's a volleyballer, and then went to bed. And I didn't feel like I shared it or celebrated it or anything because I've got to go straight into competition mode. And I remember telling myself, like, oh, I need to like reflect on this more once I'm finished. But the moment sort of passes. So I went and did it. It was really cool. It was a really like cool experience. I don't know that I'd ever get any higher honor really. And I will never forget it. And I've got some cool photos that they gave me for personal use, which was cool as well. So it's a really nice memory. I remember at the time being like, I can't really enjoy it. I've got to like switch straight into competition mode.
Which, of all the honours, you're right. Like, because you think about, say, was it Kate Campbell and Paddy Mills carried the flag for Australia. I mean, obviously, highest honour you can get as an Olympian is carry a nation's flag into the opening ceremony. But the Olympic flag is generally reserved for legends of that country's Olympics. So, you know, back in Sydney, it was like Murray Rose, people like that were carrying it into the stadium. Generally, it honours that country's Olympians. And obviously, yeah, Tokyo did a very different one. So you might be involved in the highest distinction of any sort of Olympic flag carrying ceremony because you were chosen by the IOC, essentially. Like, you know, they kind of looked at that. It was cool. Thomas Bach, Olympic champion of fencing, was sitting there going like, oh, this is Elena. She's pretty good. Let's get her out there, you know? She knows the same Bolt. Cool. You know?
Yeah, that's right. I know Usain Bolt. I know Sergei Evlevsky.
Hey, that's even bigger than knowing Usain Bolt. You know, 4 and 20 pie, Sergei Evlevsky, right? Like, you know?
Absolutely. Where's my pie, bro?
Exactly. Are you a pie fan? Are you getting his free pies? Sorry to change the subject quickly, but I've got to ask the question while we're on.
I haven't got any of his free pies.
Sergei, come on.
That's okay. That's all right. Yeah, I know. What's going on? Share with your teammate.
I know, right? No wonder you wimped out on your bungee. Exactly. Wimp.
It's funny because you were talking about like Kate Campbell and Paddy Mills. I don't think people really know a lot about the Olympic flag thing. They know obviously the Australian flag bearers and stuff, and you know those people as athletes have achieved like remarkable things that I have not achieved. But yeah, I doubt that. I don't know. It was like for me, it was just a touching and kind moment. But I didn't expect anyone to all of a sudden know who I am or like stop me in the street or anything like that.
Yet. Until you win multiple gold medals. And then Brisbane, you will be walking into the stadium with the Australian flag because
I'll be lighting a torch. What are you talking about? Or like whatever, you know.
Bugger Kieran Perkins and Stephen Bradbury and our idea. You're the new Kathy. You know, you're going to come in there in the white suit and you're going to be holding it up and then they're going to hold up the thing.
I had a white suit. Well, not like the same as hers, but they dressed us up in like kimono style suits. Actually, the question I've been asked most is, did you get to keep the suit? And the answer is no, I didn't get to keep it.
What do they do with
it? The Olympic colours on the collar. I don't know because they were custom made.
Stingy IOC. Cool. Why can't you keep it? Like, unless I see someone wearing that in Paris, and I'm telling you now,
we need to share this with them, and I want it posted to me if they still have it.
Come on, Thomas. Like, that's just not good enough, I think. Like, I mean, if they've custom made it for
Unacceptable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had to send measurements and everything, and they were, like, really peculiar measurements. Like, it was, anyway.
The only excuse, I'm telling you now, I better see on one of those bloody barges in Paris somebody wearing your kimono, basically. And you're going to be going, there it is! They've recycled it! And then you go, oh, good for you, IOC. You're very, you know, environmentally friendly. There you go, Thomas. We'll reserve judgment.
All will be forgiven if someone wears it again.
Yeah, a couple of weeks' time for the opening ceremony. We'll reserve judgment. But look, touching on Paris, you know, obviously we're releasing this after the team has been announced. We're recording this before the team is announced. So we obviously understand there's things you can and can't say. So my question is going to be, how are you feeling in terms of Paris, confident that you've done enough to be there, and when you're there, because we're confident on this show, what do you expect? What are you going into Paris literally shooting for? Haha, I did
it. So many puns. Look, I am working on not having so many expectations. Like it's you can't go in there without any expectation at all. But I think that's the thing that plagues a lot of athletes, people, whatever. It's just your expectations of something. And really, I don't know what it's going to be. I can't predict the future. So I'm going to try not to. But my goal is to make a final. Like, I would love to be in an Olympic final. I think no matter what place you come in an Olympic final would be like an amazing experience to participate in. I really enjoy shooting finals. I think they're more fun than the qualification. So I just really want that opportunity. And so I'm going to work hard to do the best I can to create that for myself, essentially.
We spoke to Sergey a little bit about the venue, Chateauroux.
If I go.
Let's be positive on the show, Elena, when you're there. But, I mean, Chateauroux, obviously it's going to be a different experience on a third Olympics because, you know, Rio, you've talked about those experiences, Tokyo, nobody really there, obviously. But now, this time around, you're not even going to be in Paris. You're going to be obviously a little bit out of the city. Sure. So how do you sort of look at something like that? Maybe less of a distraction? You're not sort of surrounded by your bestie Usain Bolt and things like that?
Yeah, look, I think there definitely will be less distractions because you're not going to be in the hustle and bustle of the Olympic Village, but there'll be other things. It's a bit disappointing, but they told us a long time ago now, like, I don't know, a year and a half ago, that the shooting would be in Chateauroux. So everyone's had plenty of time to prepare themselves for that. It is a bit disappointing not to like be with the rest of the team and have that vibe. But as you say, pros and cons, you know, you have less distractions, can be able probably be closer to other competitions that you participate in. So maybe not as foreign an environment for a comp. Although there'll be benefits too, I'm sure. Yeah.
It creates, I guess, whenever you have sort of like a little satellite village, you know, that I guess it creates your own little event area, doesn't it, right? Like, I mean, because obviously, you know, you've been to 2 Olympics. There's great things to sort of experience it. But back to your point about you focus there on a competition, you're there to do a job. You know, as much as you want to trade a pin and hang out with your other mates and all that sort of stuff, like you're there to represent your country and do your job and do as best as you can at an Olympic Games.
Yeah, the priority is performance. So from a performance perspective, it's probably not a bad thing to be out. What's different about Chateauroux, though, like usually if there's a satellite village, to my knowledge, everyone's still in the one spot in the satellite village. But there's 3 different like accommodations in Chateauroux. So even all of shooting is going to be split. So there's like the shooting range and then 3 other venues for sleeping.
Okay.
And they all have different levels of service. So like I think only one of them has a food hall.
So you hope you get to that one. You don't want to be not staying in there. Let the rifle and the shotgun people in the other 2. Like you're the pistol. The pistol shooters.
Can you imagine if they split it that way? But
segregating the shooters. That would be some controversial topics there.
There's
in Paris.
One guy, Dan Ripicoli, who's been to like 5 Olympics. And I think he always, before my first one, he was talking about how like the dining hall is this incredible experience. Because firstly, the food, and then secondly, there's so many people in there. And so it's like from a people watching point of view, and you just see that athletes come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. And like, we're all different. We're all like super excellent at, you know, the thing that we do. And how interesting you found that. So yes, there will be less people watching. And
that's the suck. Because that's one thing I always love hearing from athletes is that people watching, be it at the gym or the food hall, and I guess you all play guess the sport of that athlete, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
You know, which maybe at a gym is easier. Like, oh, that clearly a weightlifter, clearly, you know, whatever. But if you're in the food hall, you're like, oh, who's that? Like, what sport? Are you equestrian? Are you volleyball? Like, I mean,
yeah, exactly. It's hard to know sometimes. I think around the time of the Com Games, a lot of people thought I was a netballer, but I'm not nearly tall enough.
Just do you go along with it? Because I'm sure you probably get to a point where you just go, I need to ask them. But do anybody do that with you? And do you just play along with it? Yeah, I'm a netballer. Like, you know, like why not?
Yeah, I probably had it. I'm a really bad liar, so it probably just automatically came out that no, I'm not.
I'm going to admit something to you now, Elena, which I've not admitted to anybody, but this is going to be fun. So I'm going to be on the ground in Paris. I'm actually working for the Australian Olympic Committee, so I get to be fully kitted out in the uniform and everything because I'm going to be doing my job. I'm very proud of doing my job.
You're going to pretend to be an athlete.
Well, no, I'm not going to pretend, but if somebody asks me, if I'm like out and about at the Eiffel Tower, just chilling, I've got like an hour off and I'm in my uniform, and if somebody comes up to me and is like, "Oh, you're an Olympian. What sport? What? Give me a right now. Look at me. What should I be saying? What sport should I claim I'm from? I don't want to be like a sprinter or a swimmer because no one's going to buy that. But like,
well, you don't eat calories, so maybe you're the cox in the rowing.
Hey, I'm an Olympic rower. I'm on board with that. I don't know if I've
I
got
don't
the
know if
upper
that was the
body.
right term for it, but
Hey,
it's all right. You're going to be hidden in the clothes, so don't worry.
True. Okay. Well,
I mean, you don't have to do. You just have to sit there and like tell them what to do.
Oh,
You
of
don't
course,
do the
I'm the
role
guy.
yourself.
I really shouldn't be hosting an Olympic podcast because I keep getting all the terminology and not knowing what people are saying.
It's okay. You can just cut it out, right? Just edit it out.
Yeah, you think I would. But no, okay, I might go with that because again, I'm not going to openly lie. I'm not going to like walk around going, "Hey, right, I'm an Olympian." It's more like if somebody questions me because nobody goes up to somebody in a team uniform at a multi-sport event and goes, "Oh, do you work on the media team?" No, they ask, "Are you an Olympian?" So
just say shooting. We all come in different shapes and sizes.
Archer,
and you love it. Remember, you love it. So you're a shooter.
Thank you.
And you know how 25-meter pistol works now. So
I'm a member of the team. Like, that's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. I appreciate that. I'll let you know. I'll let you know how my results go afterwards.
Excellent.
Going to wrap up with a set of fun get to know you questions. But one person I need to, well, not a person, one thing I need to introduce you to is our show's mascot. This is Cherry. I'm introducing him to all of our guests on this show in the lead up to Paris. A, for inspiration, and B, I always like to get an idea of how you think Cherry would go in your event. So Cherry as an Olympic shooter, how do you think he's going to go?
Excellent.
That's what I like to hear.
Right?
Why not? Do you think that he's more suited to the 10 meter or the 25 meter with his kind of, multiple limbs?
10 meter.
Okay. More of a marathon than a
definitely
sprint?
not rifle or shotgun to be too heavy for his little arms.
Blow away the poor little thing. Okay. Air pistol might blow him away though. He's quite light, but you could sit on him. Right?
Exactly.
In between rounds, and he's got a gold medal for you. So
already.
There you go.
He's
Inspiration.
ahead of the game.
Exactly. That's what we like to do. Cherry will be in Paris with me, so we'll make sure
Excellent.
with that. Elena, we wrap up every single interview with a set of get to know you style questions as always. Similar questionnaire that all the Canadian athletes got ahead of both Rio and Pyeongchang. As always, there is a drawing element if you wish. It is optional. How's your drawing? I'll start off with that. You're a doctor. You've got like good, skills with a pen.
I've definitely got doctor's handwriting. I mean, I'm keen to try, but I can't say I'm good at drawing.
Okay, well, I
always how do I draw? On my...
There are generally like I tried this the other week with Greta Hayes, and she was like, "I'm going to do this while you ask me the questions," but she got very distracted, so she never ended up finishing it. So you can try and draw while I talk to you, or after we're done, you can draw it and send it in to me. So whatever you think. You're female. You can do more than two things at once. If this was me, I'm a man. I can't do more than one thing at once. So the options are. So I'll give you generally what they ask their athletes to draw, and you just choose one of them if you like. You can draw a picture of yourself. You can draw a picture of a teammate, Sergey. Or you can draw a picture of your general's favourite Canadian animal, but of course in this case, favourite Australian animal. I recommend you draw a picture of Sergey. That's just my opinion, but that's up to you.
Draw? He probably drew himself.
He didn't draw anything. He just.
I'm terrible at drawing.
Oh, now she's backing out of it.
Okay. I said I'd give it a go. So, but there's not that many. I thought
I think in the grand scheme of things, Elena, I think we've had maybe 5 athletes have done it, and I believe about 4 of them have been winter athletes. I keep saying no summer athlete have done it. One has actually done it. I did go through the vaults of our interviews, but it's few and far between. You're a select club if you draw for us on this show. So
all right.
Anyway, all right. I'll get to the questions. Sold. Good. All right. Your favorite Olympic moment of all time is?
Carrying the flag out.
Perfect. I like it. That works. And particularly when you answer yourself.
Yeah, I was just like, it's funny because you asked the question, I'm thinking, I really should say it about someone else, but
no, it's we always implore people on this show to answer one of their own, like because Kathy Freeman winning gold, we get it, she won a gold, but I like that, Elena. Great answer. In your spare time, what do you most like to do?
I like swimming, seeing my friends for coffees.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What's your coffee order?
Skinny cappuccino, or if I'm at like one of the super ultra Melbourne coffee snob places, I just get like a long black or what's that called? A cold brew or something like that.
No, not one of those deconstructed ones where they like basically give you the shot and the milk on like a tray and very Melbourne, right? No.
That's just so you can put how much milk in it you want it yourself.
Exactly.
Can't believe you call that a deconstructed coffee. That's excellent.
I can't believe the fact that you're so
God.
Melbourne
Can
that
you
you're just like,
please
that's
go into
normal.
a cafe and ask that?
Everybody outside of Melbourne calls that a deconstruct. Only people in Melbourne call that normal. There's the differences on this
I'm just
podcast.
like you're just describing a coffee with a dash of milk on the side.
Wow. If people listening to this or watching this have no idea about coffee culture in Australia, you just got a big education right there. Which, of course, Tokyo, you had your own barista and they're back for Paris. So that's exciting.
Not in Shadow Rue, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure they can send them down for a couple
rude.
of days.
I want one for a day. I love that. That was excellent.
Which
after I finished the competition.
I did hear that so many other athletes from other countries try to come in, but I don't think you let them in. So
it was very good.
Yeah,
I love being a coffee snub. Okay, what's next?
This isn't a question. Being someone in Victoria, Melbourne, do you follow AFL? Who's your AFL team if you do?
Oh, I don't follow AFL
Okay,
at all.
right. I've got to ask that question because I'm so insulated here in Sydney since I moved here that no one talks about AFL, so I've just always got to find excuses to ask that question. So there you go. If you could choose any Olympic host city, where would it be?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I
kind of
feel
want
like
you to
I'm
say
thinking too
Melbourne.
long on this. Oh, Melbourne.
Yeah, there we go. Look at all
There you
this.
go.
It's like
You're
our
gonna
minds were
edit out
connected.
that thinking bit and then be like, oh, she said Melbourne straight away.
It's actually funny.
Oh.
The first time because we asked these questions to Sergey the first time we had him on, not recently, obviously, because we don't ask them to you twice. But back when we asked him that question, he mentioned Minsk or Belarus, obviously prior to everything that sort of happened there. So, I mean, I'm on board with countries and sort of cities that, maybe I've never really been in the conversation and kind of spread it out a little bit more.
That's what I was trying to think. I'm like, where do I want to go? And there's so many places, which is why I was just like, I don't know.
LA, Paris, Brisbane, cities. Yes. Melbourne. What is the weirdest instruction?
I reckon somewhere in Spain. So going back, maybe a Spanish country. That would be cool.
Yeah,
Spanish city, sorry.
Barcelona, often regarded as one of the greatest Olympics of all time, of course, back in '92. So it's been a while. So no, I think most people would be on board with that one. The weirdest instruction a coach ever gave you was?
Oh, it's probably something my dad said because maybe the English language choice wasn't the best. Yeah, but I don't know an actual phrase off the top of my head, but I'm curious to know what Sergey's one was from back then.
I did actually re-listen to his interview recently, but can I remember his answer to that one? No. So some of these do change, I will say. So like this questionnaire I often try and choose an athlete from your sport, but no Canadian shooters, at least published online. So I've gone with an archer today, the closest I could get. So Crispin Duenas, and so he has that question. Some athletes will have maybe slightly different questions.
Yeah.
So whether or not Sergey got that one or not, you can put that on your drawing of him so he can actually answer that. What is your favorite workout?
Ooh. Well, I really like swimming, but aside from that, I just like core strength work in the gym. I quite enjoy resistance exercise. I always feel good after it. So that'd be my favorite.
It's also one of these sports shooting, and I know we've covered a lot with many of our shooters over the years about the physical aspect of it, the gym work. But I can imagine it is one of those sports for people who know nothing about it would often question whether you go to the gym, right? Why do you go to the gym? You're just standing there, right? Which, I mean, obviously is not the case. You do need to go to the gym. There is a physical element to the sport. Is that fun when you're at like a gym at an Olympics where, you're going to have these showboaters, weightlifters, like people like that who are just tanks of human beings.
And here you are with your like 5 kilo dumbbell or something.
That's where you just look over and you just see who would the laziest Olympians be?
But I sort of feel like that going into the Victorian Institute of Sport anyway, because I'm like, oh my God, these people are so much more athletic than I am. That's okay. I work on my core strength and my arms, my back and stuff. Anyway,
I want Dean and Tarly to tune out from my next little joke that I'm about to say, but just go to the Winter Olympic gym and go up against the curlers. They're lazy. So, And I know they're not Dean and Tarly. I've tried it. It's a bloody hard sport, all right? I understand curling is a hard sport. If you could have lunch with any one person, who would it be?
You.
Oh, I'm honoured. You're the first person who's
thing that
ever
popped into
answered
my
that.
mind.
Oh, look at that. I've done hundreds of these and no one's ever wanted to have lunch with me. Ah, what are we having?
there you go.
Where are we going? What are we
Oh,
eating?
no. Somewhere in Melbourne with good coffee, not deconstructed.
You take me to your favourite cafe in Melbourne. I'll be fully coffee snob and we'll get like a croissant or something. That's very Paris-esque, isn't it? You know? Or you go to the 4 and 20 pie and invite Sergey, you know?
Well, Sergey's shout, I guess.
Yeah, well, exactly. He's got the free pies. So, you know, we don't, do we? Sergey with your free pies. So, I mean, this is kind of related to lunch. What is your favourite sandwich?
Ooh, I reckon chicken and avo.
Yes.
Or like quality toasted sandwich, like, you know, the fancy sort of toasties, which are like really good.
Sourdough? Are we talking sourdough?
Oh, I love sourdough.
Sourdough's
Love
the best
good
bread.
sourdough.
Such a
Love
good bread. If you could have
One day, maybe I'll make some. Maybe.
Didn't quite
I need
get
a bit more time.
I was going to ask, did you do it in COVID? But you were actually quite busy during COVID. Where most of us were making sourdough. You were saving lives. So, you know, kind of more important things to do there. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
Flying. Yes. Just get up, fly, and there you go.
Yeah. I think like the freedom of it, also being able to get to a place really fast, that's also convenient.
Yeah, it helps, you know, particularly in your profession, I guess. The best candy in the world is?
Ooh, candy. This is really tough. There's so many good candies. I feel like it's an American style question.
It is.
I don't know.
Too many to name?
Lately, too many names. But lately, I've been doing like the snack swap with one of my Serbian friends, Zorana. She's a pistol shooter.
Okay.
And she's been bringing me these things that are sort of like Starbursts, but they're from Serbia. I don't know. They're called something else. A little chewy little lolly things. They're not bad.
So what do you give her for Australian sort of?
Oh, well, I brought her quite an assortment last time. So I brought her Shapes, Milo, Tim Tams, mint slice, cherry rye, some old gold chocolate. Oh. What else was in there? I was keen for her to try the Milo because I hadn't brought that to her before.
It's great because I've done that with friends in the States.
Oh, Cheezels.
Oh, yes. See,
I was trying to pick actually Australian things. Yeah.
But it's funny when you do it, isn't it? Because I've done that with friends in the States, and I always find it funny when you go to like Woolies or Coles and you're just buying it. Literally, the checkout person always looks at you and going, "You're sending these overseas, aren't you?" Because you're buying like Shapes, Tim Tams, Milo, Caramello Koalas, like cherry ripes, just the most obviously Australian things, right? Which it's funny.
I haven't got her any Lamington.
That's hard to send though, aren't they? Because they might go off by the time you get there. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's a fun thing to do, that sort of stuff. Your favorite sports movie is?
Ooh, actually, I've got a really good one. I don't know if it's like my favorite, but there's one that came out recently that's about like a rowing eight. What's it called? The Men in the Boat or something? Or the Boys in the Boat.
Right.
That's quite good. It's about like a really, really poor university sort of group of men who they essentially need to find work to fund their university, and they get on the rowing team, and then they end up making the Olympic team, and they have to like fundraise to get there because they won't like they have to pay for themselves to go. And that was quite good.
As an Olympic rower, I can relate.
Yeah, so absolutely.
It's hard work. It's very, very hard work. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Ooh, I want to live somewhere in Europe. I don't know where. But I've only been to France and Germany out of European countries, so I really like to visit like everywhere else.
Is there plans after Paris to like? Can you hang around and travel? Or you got to come straight back home, basically.
Yeah, I got to go home and go to work.
Yeah,
so I will be exploring Heidelberg in Victoria.
There you go.
That's where I'll be exploring.
The Paris of the South. So.
That's right.
Often compared. But having said that, though, you will get to fly back business class with an Olympic gold medal, and you'll get the day off to have a welcome home parade. So, you know, I'm sure they'll give you a day off.
It would be pretty cool to fly business class. But I remember coming home on the charter from Rio, and of course I was in the pleb class because, you know, what did you say? I came 32nd or something. But yeah, all the medalists were up in business. I've recently, one of my friends is a pilot. and he flies for Qantas. And there's actually very few Qantas planes with first class, so most of them only have business class. There's only a few legs. I think it's something like Sydney to London, or I don't know, I can't remember. He told me this last night, but it's already gone. That has first class.
I don't even know the difference. I mean, look, I have flown like the makeshift business class on like domestic, like on Rex when you get
where you get a slightly bigger seat.
$10, you get food. I think in the States I was on a standby ticket and the only seat available was business class. But again, it's not that. It's just a bigger seat. You get free food and a wider TV. It's not like the fancy business class you see
I've never flown business class.
You always get on the plane when you're flying like long haul and you just look, don't you? And they know they're looking at you. They're looking at you going, yeah, you're in the back in cattle class. You're going to be sleeping uncomfortably for 15 hours. I'm going to be laying back by the pool. Sucks to be you. One of these days, you are going to be experiencing it soon with the gold medal around your neck. But one of these days, we're all going to experience that one there. Last question I'm going to ask you, and I love this one because this is so open to interpretation. You can answer this however you want. When you were little, what was one thing you always thought?
Oh. It's going to be sad to grow up. I don't know. I actually don't know if I ever thought that, to be honest. That's the first thing that came to my mind as now
that's a great answer.
Who has to adult all the time.
You got to adult all the time. I mean, this is why I love that question because you can answer like that. I've had people answer, I was always hungry.
Sad.
Things like that. Like it's so open. I'm seeing here that Crispin answered that he wanted to become an astronaut. So
that's cool. I never knew what I wanted to do when I was young.
Never known what you would. I actually, in a former life when I hosted radio, I would have a set of 5 questions that I would ask all my guests, and one of them was, "What did you want to be when you grow up?" So there you go.
Well, I'm still growing. There's still time.
Yeah. At what point do you actually reach an age where you go, "I've grown up"? I don't think anybody. I think our parents still think they're growing up, right? So
probably.
There's that. Elena, before we let you go, people want to follow your journey sort of between now, the Olympics, beyond, social media. Where can people find you? TikTok, Instagram, any of those?
Yeah, I've got Instagram. It's lel.ggee. And I have Facebook as well, but I think that one's a private one. I don't do TikTok because I just don't have any time. So I've never downloaded it because I know I'll go down a scrolling rabbit hole and then it'll be next year.
And that's why you don't get free meat pies. That's why Sergey does and you don't.
That's pretty much why I don't get free meat pies.
I just called it Tic Tac. I can't even speak properly at the end of this. Elena, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on the show. Best of luck for everything. Fingers crossed, Paris, everything along those lines. And we'll get you back on as we're getting all of our guests on this show after the Olympics with a nice shiny gold medal around your neck.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.